with twins.
Believe it or not, they're twins.
Red hair and freckles, that's the Ireland everyone knows.
I love my red hair.
We have redheads from all over the world for Ireland.
But what about jet black hair, pale skin, and ice blue eyes? They're Irish too, and their story is far stranger than the myth. For centuries, whispers called them the Black Irish. Were they the lost children of shipwrecked Spaniards? The legacy of Viking raiders? Or something buried even deeper in time? Ireland has always been more than a land of stereotypes. Behind every face is a story written in DNA. Stories of invasion, survival, famine, and resilience. And modern science is finally unraveling the truth. What researchers are finding doesn't just explain Ireland's unique looks. It also reveals why the Irish have the world's highest rates of red hair, adult milk digestion, and even genetic diseases like cystic fibrosis. This isn't just history, it's identity. And once you see what's hidden in Irish DNA, you'll never look at Ireland the same way again. You're watching Stone and Bone. If you want more hidden stories of our ancestors, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because the secrets buried in DNA are only beginning to be uncovered. Every country has its ghost stories. In Ireland, one of the strangest isn't about castles or banshees. It's about faces. For generations, villagers on the Atlantic coast spoke of families who looked unlike their neighbors. Hair as dark as midnight, eyes like steel, skin so pale it almost glowed. They called them the Black Irish. Explanations came quickly. Some swore they were the children of Spanish sailors who staggered ashore after the Armada of 1588. Others pointed to Viking raiders or to Norman knights who left castles across the island. Each tale offered a neat answer, but only on the surface. When modern genetics began testing these old theories, the results were sobering. A handful of Spanish shipwreck survivors could never rewrite a nation's DNA. Viking bloodlines exist, yes, but mostly in the east, around Dublin and Waterford, not in the rugged west, where the Black Irish were most often seen. As for the Normans, their legacy lingers in noble surnames more than in the everyday population. The legends gave Ireland's mystery a storybook glow. But the true origins of the Black Irish don't begin with a shipwreck or a raid. They begin thousands of years earlier, with a wave of newcomers who didn't just mix into Ireland's past population, they almost erased it. "4,000 years ago, the island of Ireland looked very different. Its people were descendants of Mediterranean farmers who had brought wheat, livestock, and stone tombs. Their genetic signatures were diverse, rooted in the first pioneers who sailed north after the Ice Age. Then came the Great Upheaval. Around 2500 BC, a new culture swept across Europe, the Bell Beaker people. Archaeology remembers them for their pottery, but DNA reveals the true impact. They didn't simply arrive and blend in. They replaced nearly 9 out of 10 Irish male lineages within a few centuries. On Rathlin Island, the bones of Bronze Age men tell this story vividly. Sequence DNA shows they carried the haplogroup R1BL21, still present in 2/3 of Irish men today. In their genes was another advantage, the rare ability to keep digesting milk into adulthood. That trait, almost absent in much of the ancient world, became one of the highest frequency adaptations anywhere. Over 90% of Irish adults today can drink milk, compared with only about 35% worldwide. But here's where the mystery deepens. Alongside lighter skin and eye genes, some alleles for darker hair survived the genetic revolution. In isolated communities, those traits didn't just linger, they flourished. That is why the same island became home to two striking extremes: the flame-haired Irish stereotype and the enigmatic Black Irish with raven-dark hair and pale eyes. Ireland's DNA had been rolled like dice, and the outcome was a country where opposites could live side by side. even within the same family. Quick thought for you. Imagine living through a time when 90% of the male population's bloodlines were replaced. Do you think it was conquest, disease, or simply migration that caused it? Tell us what you think in the comments below. When we talk about ancestry, we often look at the fathers, the Y chromosome that passes from man to son like a surname in blood. But half of the Irish story belongs to the mothers. Their genetic legacy is preserved in mitochondrial DNA, passed from mother to child, unchanged for thousands of years. The results are remarkable. The most common maternal haplogroup in Ireland is H, carried by almost 4 in 10 Irish women. It's a lineage that stretches back to Europe's earliest farmers. Another 13% carry haplogroup U, one of Europe's oldest signatures. Within it, U5 is nicknamed the hunter-gatherer marker, linking modern Irish women to Ice Age survivors who foraged on these coasts more than 7,000 years ago. Other maternal lines, T, K, J, add layers to the story. Each connects Ireland to distant homelands, the Mediterranean, the Near East, the steppes. But here's the twist. When scientists compared Ireland's maternal DNA to Britain's, they found the closest matches not across the Irish Sea, but across the Atlantic seaboard, France, Spain, and even Iberia. That means prehistoric Ireland wasn't just connected eastward. Families were also sailing west and south, long before the age of Vikings, or Normans. And crucially, some of these maternal lineages carried alleles for dark hair. While paternal lineages spread lighter traits, the mothers kept those darker genes alive, balancing the genetic palette that still shows up in Irish faces today. If you really want to see the Black Irish, you don't go to Dublin or Belfast. You go west. Kerry, Cork, Galway. Places where families have lived in the same valleys for generations, where stone walls run for miles, and the Atlantic crashes endlessly on the cliffs. In 2017, the Irish DNA Atlas Project revealed just how different the West really is. Instead of a single homogeneous population, Ireland broke down into 10 distinct clusters. 7 were deeply Gaelic. The rest carried more recent British influence. And where were the most ancient, least altered clusters? The far west. Here, DNA continuity runs back almost unchanged to the Bronze Age. Viking and Norman signatures, so strong in the east, barely touched Kerry and Cork. In fact, while most Irish carry about 7% Viking ancestry, some Western families have less than 2%. Isolation did something powerful. Scientists call it a founder effect. When small cut-off communities preserve rare traits that might vanish elsewhere. In Western Ireland, that meant black hair, pale skin, and light eyes had the perfect environment to persist. But it wasn't just geography. Culture mattered too. The West remained the stronghold of Gaelic traditions, music, language, tight-knit kin groups. Families intermarried within their own valleys, reinforcing old lineages. Over time, the culture and the genetics mirrored each other, stubborn, enduring, resistant to change. So when you see the Black Irish look in the West, you're not just seeing a phenotype, you're seeing a survival strategy of people and genes that clung on while history swirled around them. Here's the irony. Ireland isn't only famous for its black-haired mystery, it's also the world capital of red hair. Roughly 10% of Irish people have natural red hair, second only to Scotland's 13%. England trails at around 6%, while globally, the rate is just 1-2%. But here's the twist. Ireland has the highest concentration of the red-haired gene variants in the world, meaning even those without red hair often carry the DNA for it. The key lies in a gene called MC1R. Variants, like arginine, 151 cysteine, arginine 160 tryptophan, and aspartic acid to histidine at position 294 boost the chance of fiery hair and freckles. But genetics isn't simple. Someone may carry a red hair allele, yet still end up with raven dark hair if strong melanin-producing genes override it. In Ireland, both sets of genes coexist at unusually high frequencies. That's why in the same family tree, you might find a flame-haired daughter and her brother with jet black hair and ice blue eyes. They're both Irish, both carrying the tug-of-war of pigmentation genes. This contrast is no accident. Dark hair alleles arrived with Neolithic farmers from the Mediterranean. Lighter skin and eye genes surged with the Bronze Age migrations. Instead of one replacing the other, Ireland kept both and let them clash. The result? A small island where genetic opposites live side by side, where redheads and black Irish aren't contradictions, but siblings in the same national story. Let me ask you, if you had to pick the more surprising Irish look, which shocks you more, the fiery redhead or the black Irish with pale skin and raven hair? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to see which side of Ireland's extremes fascinates you most. In Ireland, surnames are more than names. They're time capsules. Each one holds clues about power, migration, and even appearance. Take the Ui Neill dynasty. For centuries, they ruled swathes of the island, claiming descent from the legendary king, Neill of the Nine Hostages. When geneticists studied men in northwest Ireland, they found something astonishing. Nearly 1 in 5 carry the same Y chromosome lineage, known as the Northwest Irish modal haplotype. That's a genetic dynasty on a scale few countries can match. And where is it strongest? In the West and Northwest, the very regions associated with the Black Irish look. Then there are the O'Briens, descendants of Brian Boru, Ireland's High King. Their DNA isn't one straight line. It's a patchwork of Gaelic, Norse, and even English origins. It proves that even a single surname can hide centuries of mixing, conquest, and survival. This matters because dynasties spread their DNA far and wide. A powerful family could shape the genetic makeup of entire regions, leaving legacies that still show up in faces today. When you meet someone with a surname like O'Neill, O'Donnell, or O'Connor, you're not just hearing history, you might be looking at it. But Ireland's DNA wasn't only molded by kings and warriors. Sometimes it was tragedy that wrote the deepest marks. The Irish story is also one of collapse, and no event shows this more than the Great Famine of 1845 to 1852. When the potato harvest failed, the population plummeted from nearly 8 million to just 4 million in a single generation. Entire villages vanished. Families disappeared forever. This was more than a human disaster. It was a genetic bottleneck. In population genetics, a bottleneck squeezes the diversity of a people through a narrow opening. Many lineages vanish, a few survive, and those survivors carry their traits forward in amplified form. In Western Ireland, where isolation already protected certain looks, the famine became a genetic filter. The families that endured passed on not only their names and land, but also their unusual pigmentation genes. Dark hair with pale eyes and skin. But famine wasn't the only twist in the genetic story. Western Ireland also carries the world's highest rates of hereditary hemochromatosis, often called the Celtic curse. This condition, caused by the cysteine 282 to tyrosine mutation, makes the body absorb too much iron. Today, it can be deadly if untreated. But in the famine years, when diets were poor and iron was scarce, it may have been a hidden advantage. Around 1 in 10 people in the West carry this gene, the highest frequency anywhere. Geneticists often compare it to the sickle cell trait in Africa, a dangerous burden today, but once a shield against a harsher past. In Ireland, survival and suffering walked hand in hand, and the Black Irish faces that still stand out today are part of that legacy. The Black Irish mystery didn't stay on the island. In the 19th century, When famine and hardship drove millions overseas, Ireland's DNA scattered across the world. By the mid-1900s, over 70 million people worldwide claimed Irish descent. In cities like Boston, New York, Sydney, and Buenos Aires, the Irish face took root in new lands. But here's where the story twists again. In America, the phrase Black Irish took on a new meaning. Immigrants with darker hair and pale skin were singled out with the label, often as a way to distinguish them from the freckled redheads people expected to see. The name followed them into census records, newspapers, even family stories. This wasn't just about appearance, it was about identity in exile. For many Irish immigrants, the Black Irish tag became part of how they explained their difference in a foreign land. And it didn't vanish with time. Even today, families in the US or Australia sometimes tell stories of a Black Irish grandmother with raven hair and light eyes, passing down a legacy that started thousands of years earlier on the Atlantic coast of Ireland. The diaspora ensured that the Black Irish were not just an Irish mystery, they became a global one. For centuries, folklore gave the answers: Spaniards, Vikings, Normans. But today, it's genomics, the sequencing of entire populations, that reveals the truth. Modern DNA projects, from Trinity College Dublin to the Irish DNA Atlas, use tools like globetrotter analysis to track genetic signals across time. What they find lines up with history, but with some surprises. Viking influence peaks around the 9th-11th centuries, strongest in Dublin, Limerick, and Waterford. Roughly 6% of Irish men still carry Norse Y chromosome lineages. Norman DNA appears around the 12th century, concentrated in noble surnames and eastern castles. Scottish and English DNA spread in Ulster during the 1600s plantations, leaving a permanent mark in the north. But here's the revelation. While the East grew layered with foreign signals, the West remained astonishingly pure, still tied most closely to its Bronze Age ancestors. That's why the Black Irish look is strongest in Kerry, Cork, and Galway. Those faces are genetic time machines, less diluted, more ancient. Autosomal DNA, the blend from both parents, shows the true recipe of the Irish people. About 30% from Western hunter-gatherers who returned after the Ice Age. About 40% from Mediterranean farmers who sailed north with wheat and cattle. About 30% from steppe herders, whose arrival sparked the Bronze Age revolution. This balance has held for nearly 4,000 years, making Ireland one of the most genetically stable places in Europe. And within that balance lies the secret of the Black Irish. Traits from all three ancestral streams, preserved by isolation and survival, combined in ways that still puzzle the eye today. It's tempting to think of the Black Irish as just a curiosity, a quirk of appearance. But when we pull the thread, we discover the tapestry of Ireland itself. For centuries, the stereotype of Ireland was painted with broad strokes, a land of fiery redheads, pale skin, freckles, and blue eyes. But the Black Irish remind us that identity was never that simple. From Bronze Age farmers and steppe herders to Viking raiders and famine survivors, Ireland became a mosaic of stories, layered in DNA, carried in families, and still visible in faces today. Modern research proves what folklore only guessed at. There is no single Irish look. Instead, there are extremes living side by side. Siblings with hair like fire or hair like midnight, both carrying echoes of the same ancestors. The very same genetic twists that produced rare beauty also shaped resilience, survival, and even vulnerability to diseases that Ireland still struggles with today. And when millions immigrated, that diversity sailed with them. From Boston to Melbourne, from Buenos Aires to Cape Town, families still whisper of dark-haired Irish grandmothers, proof that the mystery didn't end on Ireland's shores. The truth is this: the Black Irish are not outsiders, not myths, not invaders' children. They are the clearest reminder that Ireland's identity was forged in survival and shaped by chance. Their faces carry the story of an island that refused to be one thing, an island that embraced contradiction and turned it into heritage. So the next time someone says, "You don't look Irish," remember this: there is no one Irish face. There are many, and every one of them tells a story thousands of years old. You've been watching Stone and Bone. If you believe history lives not just in ruins, but in us, in our blood, our faces, our survival, then don't let this story end here. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss the secrets buried in our DNA. And we want to hear from you. Which part of the Black Irish story surprised you the most? The myths, the Bronze Age shockwave, or the survival through famine? Drop your answer in the comments below, because identity is never simple. And on this channel, we'll keep uncovering the hidden truths that history tried to bury.